Dear reader, in the drop of 1 year, one can accomplish so many things. And for me, I read 84 books, which is nothing to sniff at. But in reading all those books, there were some I had to put off and try to read in the next year. I have a plan to try to accomplish those reading goals, and I'll get to that. Here are 10 books on my shelf that I didn't get to, and a brief synopsis of those books, why I have them on my shelf, and why I didn't get to them, and how I plan to circle back to them in 2025. Here is the first book. You've seen this book before. House of Leaves. This book is terrifying to me in that people say it is larger on the inside than it is the outside. They say it keeps getting longer and longer the more you read it, almost like Infinite Jest. Another book I have to read, but not on my list for next year. I wanted to read it in December, but it felt very overwhelming by the very possibility of this book, which seems very thick. I felt like I wouldn't have been able to get to it as much as I wanted to. I heard that it's a very amazing book, and it's one that can change your life, which is why it's on my shelf. I plan on tackling it next year, and I hope that I can do it, which feels like a mountain climbing expedition that one has to prepare for. I hope that I'm ready for whatever comes with it. I don't know. The next book, Ulysses by James Joyce. I actually met my ex-boyfriend because of James Joyce, and I had made it so that it was my mission to read all of his books. But it took me almost a whole year to get through The Dubliners, and that's apparently one of his more tamer novels. Heard Ulysses is just a mess as far as it goes, and I'm hesitant to try to read it because it's almost indecipherable at certain points from what I heard. And it feels like the author, sometimes it feels like authors in general are just trying to mess with us to see what they can fucking get away with. I heard this is one of those books. This is like a Nirvana album that makes fun of his fan base, just poking at you like, you goddamn nerd, you think you like to read? Show you. That's what James Joyce is. He's a lunatic. The next book, The Murder Game by Carrie Doyle. I bought a bunch of these tweeny, easy breezy reads, and this is one of them. They're very consumable reads that take very little thought and no analysis of the text. They're very pulpy, kind of dumb. I had to read several like this last year, and I didn't think that I wanted to consume that many because I didn't want to lose IQ points. Let's read the back of the book. Luke Chase never wanted to get caught up in a murder when his roommate Oscar convinces Luke to break the rules and sneak out of boarding school dorm one night. It sounds like fun. They'll meet up with a couple girls in the forest, have a good time, and no one will ever know. But when the wife of one of their students is found dead in the woods the next morning, Luke realizes they're in deep trouble. Instead of admitting where they are, the group decides to solve the murder on their own. With so many suspects, will they be able to catch the killer before the killer catches them? Okay. The next book, The Warning by Christy Acevedo. It's another one of those easy breezy reads, and I'm okay with that, but I just wanted to get it anyway. From the back cover, like most high school seniors, Alexandra Lucas is caught between living in the moment and from an unknown future. Her anxiety disorder doesn't make it any easier, but she's coping until her train stops on the way home from a concert with her boyfriend. At first, she's worried about breaking curfew, then terror echoes through their train car. A mysterious doorway has appeared beside the tracks. A hologram claiming to be human from the future shares a sinister warning. A comet is on collision course with Earth. All life will end in 6 months' time. To survive, people must step through one of many portals that have opened up around the world. The holograms claim to offer safety, but how can anyone be sure? Stay or go, everyone must make their own choice. Alex's family, her friends, her boyfriend all have different ideas. Alex is only sure of one thing. She wants to decide for herself. but every decision comes at a price. The warning. Oh, the next book. Eleutheria. Um, I'll just read the back cover because this was there's a reason why I waited, I think, until 2025 to read this book. Willa Marks has spent her whole life choosing hope. She chooses hope over her parents' paranoid conspiracy theories, over her dead-end job, over rising ocean levels. When she meets Sylvia Gill, renowned Harvard professor, she feels like she found a justification for that hope. Sylvia is the woman in black, the only person who can compel the world to action. When Sylvia betrays her, Willa fears she has lost hope forever. And she finds a book in Sylvia's library, a guide defining climate change called Living the Solution. Inspired by its message and with nothing to lose, Willa flies to the island of Eleutheria in the Bahamas to join the author and its group of eco warriors at Camp Hope. But upon arrival, the group's leader, author Roy Adams, goes missing and the compound's public launch is delayed. With time running out, Willa will stop at nothing to realize Camp Hope's mission, but at what cost? So it talks about hope and conspiracy theories and paranoid conspiracy theories and things like that. This is a book for 2025, if it is it not, about climate change, conspiracy theories, trying to find hope in a very hopeless world. I was not ready to read this in 2024, but I am ready to read it in 2025. Yes. Um, the next book. Thus Spoke Zarathustra by Nietzsche. This book was perverted by the Nazis in the 30s, and I wanted to read it to understand what he was talking about, to see what fascists were thinking about. I thought it would be fitting for 2025 for no discernible reason. Uh, no, there's no reason why I would want to understand fascists in 2025. No reason. Because they although they because they may or may not be coming into power again. And understanding their philosophy is a way of combating them. Just as a thought experiment here. We have The Stand by Stephen King. Oh, thick book. I got some dust bunnies on this book too. I've put this book off, but I think we're far enough in the future that it'd be worth a read in 2025, since we're getting to the point in history where people are not worrying about vaccines and we're at a critical mass for infectious diseases coming back. I'd like to stay in my house and read. Thank you very much. Look at this beast. This is a thick book. This is a thick book too, which is a lot of the reasons I put off most of the books on this list. A copy of this book was found. Gödel Escher Bach, The Eternal Golden Braid. I've tried reading this book before. A copy of this book was found amongst the belongings of the Unabomber for his radical thinking, and I wonder why he found it so fascinating and wanted to dig into the philosophy of it a bit more. I have the sequel to this book as well, which is called I Am a Strange Loop. I wanted to study the mathematics of it a little bit more. So it talks about like consciousness and mathematics and art and how they all relate to each other. Very interesting book. But yes. This book, I tried reading this. I started to read this book in 2024, but I found it to be quite dull. I'm going to find myself dozing off while reading it. There had to be something that would keep me engaged while reading it, so I'm going to have to try to give it another shot in 2025 and pick it up from pause next year, but I'm not very hopeful about it. This is journal entries, but it's so cut and dry. Such a dry meditation because it just puts you in kind of a stupor and you just kind of fall asleep. So there's got to be something that kind of keeps you awake while reading it. Um, they even look very tired. Look at the people on the cover. They look zonked. They look zonked. Okay. Uh, so we've come to the last book on the list, and I am chagrined to share it. Oh goodness, here we go. William writes, The Function of the Orgasm. I learned about this book from the Jack Kerouac novel, who is a book referencing horror to other works of art, to other people, to other situations, to movies, etc. He mentions this book specifically as a book that was revolutionary in the 1950s, and I wanted to see why it was so life-changing to the beatniks. Was it just about sex or the fact that it was early feminist thought? I'm not sure, but I wanted to read it to get a thought about it. It put me off that it was such a long book. See, it's fairly long, but I didn't want to be seen out in public reading about orgasms lest people judge me for being a pervert. Anyway, it seems reading about orgasms out in public. Oh God, people are gonna be like, "What are you reading about?" Anyway, do you have any books that you're currently thinking about for 2025 or bugging that you're currently overwhelmed about thinking about? How do you plan on tackling them? Comment down below for books that are on your shelf that give you great shame that you know you should be reading, but just don't. Also, this is your sign to return your overdue library books. Just bring them back if you're not going to be reading them, or get started on reading them if you are. At least extend your time on them if you're actually planning on reading them, at least one of them. Be honest with yourself and realistic. Get started today. Get started today. Definitely need to return mine because none of them appeal to me anymore. I am such a mood reader. Thanks for watching, and if you made it this far, I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a great rest of your day. If you made it this far, leave me a little book emoji next to the book you're currently reading, the name of the book you're reading, or if you're reading multiple books, the one you're enjoying the most. If it's an audiobook, leave a music note instead. I'm so curious to who listens to audiobooks these days since I just got into the habit personally. If you liked this, consider hitting the subscribe button. I do a lot of stuff on this channel. I read my work, talk about my books, and lately I've been trying to script my videos more, which is why you see me doing this format. Just a little switcheroo for 2025, I suppose. I hope you're enjoying the videos. I hope you have a nice day, read good books, and or bad books that you inspire you to write passionate review in your journal about how awful it was. Throw your arm over your face as you fall back into your bed dramatically. I've never in my life you shout as you read another chapter. Love, Ari.